I mean, I'm sure it'll be all right regardless. So thank you for obviously coming today, joining me, and I think if you introduce yourself and a bit about what you do, that's probably going to be a lot better than if I try and do it and probably get it wrong. So if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and sort of why you're on today.
Cool. Thank you so much for having me here. So, hi everyone. I'm Dorothy. I'm a reader at the Department of Psychology at Ashfield University. I'm a neuroscientist and also a cognitive psychologist. I research into what makes memory last. So, I'm really interested to learn about what's going on with the brain, and also with how we remember things, and also how sometimes we forget things. So links to memory and well-being. So this is what I'm really interested in.
I mean, that's such like a vague topic, such an in-depth topic. Sort of, how did you sort of know that this was the avenue to go then? Because psychology is such like a vast sort of cover, and then you got obviously neuroscience, things like that. What really stood out to you when you was deciding to do this?
Yeah, so since I was a kid, I always fascinated by how people behave, in a way that they behave, the way that they think. Also, so I'm always interested in that aspect. So when I did my undergraduate, I really split between either do a psychology subject or biology. Yeah. So at the end, I picked biotechnology. I'm from Hong Kong, so I did my undergraduate in Hong Kong. Yeah. So I did biotechnology, and then after that, I was wondering, oh, so in my master's, what should I do? Should I go ahead, to do psychology, which I'm always fascinated about, or could I do something maybe a combination of both? And that is when I came across neuroscience. So neuroscience is a vast topic. So what I'm really interested in is the behavioral part of it. So it's trying to understand what's going on in the brain and understanding why people behave in that sense. So this is a starting point. So during my master's, I look into the neurobiology of memory. So trying to understanding the memory mechanism behind what's going on. So that's just the starting point. And then afterwards, I did a PhD in Edinburgh. So I've been spending at the University of Edinburgh for 16 years, before I came to Liverpool. Yeah. Just actually. So so I did my master's, PhD, postdocs. So postdocs is after PhD, you work in a lab. Yeah, so it's been fascinating. And then since I arrived Liverpool area, when I started my own life, so I have my own team. Then I spent what I was doing in Edinburgh. Yeah. So in Edinburgh, I did a lot of animal work too, using animal models and understanding what's going on in the brain. And when I arrived in Liverpool, so back then I didn't know anyone. I built up the network. So I work with some organizations and really focusing on looking into the more real life settings, what's going on. So I work with University of Third Age, which is an organization consists of people who are retired usually. Yeah. And so usually they're 60 plus, which they're very vibrant group, and they have networks throughout the whole UK. So the organization I work with is U3 Alton and Ormskirk. And they have been fascinating. Since I working with them, so it's when I first started at Ashfield. So it's about 3.5 years now. And we got some funding, which is really nice, also from Ashfield, to start out with this project. It's a co-creation project. So it's looking into how do we promote brain health, basically to promote what is good, with brain health and also with health and well-being. So this is something I think is important, to make sure that in the community and also in Northwest, we know what is a good way to promote brain health. So what we did is could I talk about a bit more?
Yeah, feel free.
With the project is really great. So it's a co-creation that is really important because.
So what does that mean?
So this is a good question. So preparation means that we involve the public in the very beginning. Yeah. So it's not just the scientists, the research to think about, okay, what's the project? It's having the consultation of the public engagement groups that from the very beginning to organize this project. So with this project, we first asked the U3, what kind of topics do you want to know about brain health, about well-being. So they listed a few topics from like memory, so the differences between like dementia and memory. And the second thing is about physical activity. So we all know like doing exercise is good, but what type of exercise and how long? And what kind is that good for that particular age group? So I think this is very important. And then we also talk about emotion, so emotional well-being, because as you know, like during COVID, right, a lot of people like feeling really isolated. And I know that we, like a few years already, but some of the older adults, like they probably still find it difficult. So how does that impact, like the community? So that's also really important. And also with the Eastern group, right? Because they're really great. They have got lots of activities. Like when I first saw them, I think 3.5 years now. When I went to their coffee morning, like they showed me a list of activities they do. Which is fascinating. It was, I think it's more than 50 activities. Wow. And I also saw that they have one which is called Mahjong. Like, I don't know, have you heard of Mahjong? So it's a game. Yes, exactly. Yeah. But it is a very niche and specific games, and you can see that like how many activities they have because they range from yoga, dancing, hill walking, from like Mahjong, which is a very specific games, that I grew up in Hong Kong. Hong Kong people like to play Mahjong. I was like fascinated by, how the varieties of the Easter egg activity. So I think Easter egg is a really good, organization, for people like after they retire have like a social life too. Yeah. With the health aging program with an active mind. So this is something that we also look into the social elements because it's important, to have like good social life. Yeah. So we basically consult people like reviews rate, asking them what kind of projects they would like to know more. Because as researchers, it's important for us to bring the latest research to the public, let them know what is the latest research so that could inform them, and at the same time to see the feedback and to ask them, is that actually what they would like to know? Of course. Because as a researcher, sometimes I think we have questions, research questions that we really want to do. We really want to know. For example, myself, I would like to know the neurobiology of memory, but it's a very big topic. And we also have some questions, but however, these questions we based on hypothesis and everything, then we deduce something. However, these questions are actually things that the public wants to know. Because ultimately, what we want to do is to contribute to the society. With it being a co-creation process. Exactly. So that's just why it brings back to the original. I think that's really important for the co-creation part. It's like from the very beginning, we involve the public to ask them, are these questions, you really want to know? Or is that just we created in a bubble? Yeah, so this is something I think is important. Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting there because obviously one of the questions that I'd like to ask you, and you covered it briefly there, obviously speaking with the third age and things like that. That's obviously a specific demographic. But how does, neuroscience connect to well-being? And is there any sort of common traits and common themes that in your work and your research and, being a lecturer in a university that you often see combined with neuroscience and well-being? Yeah, that's a good question. So I think one of the questions that I came across a lot as a neuroscientist or cognitive psychologist is that, and as a memory researcher, people will ask that, is it normal to forget things? Yeah, so it's that I don't know, do you... Constantly. I myself, as a memory researcher, I felt embarrassed sometimes. I forget my things. It's not that you should be really good in memory things your memory should be excellent because you do come across cases that people have super memory. Episodic memory. Episodic memory is more episode of things. For example, right now, right, we are having this conversation. People will have super memory, will remember exactly what day and what's the weather so every details of the episode. So yeah, and I know I'm not like that, but it's okay. I think that now I can came across is that's okay, because my memory is not great, hence that's why, I study memory. But back to your question is that I came across quite often people are generally interested to see that when they, especially when it came to age, is that I forgot this and I forgot that. It's more daily everyday memory task.
Yeah.
So is that normal? Is that a normal aging forgetting? Or is that a sign for early onset dementia? So what's like the differences? Yeah. So sometimes it's very devastating. I don't know if you have anyone or friends or family that have developed like dementia or memory loss. Like it's devastating, for the person, him or herself, and also it's really devastating for the carers. Yeah, because my mother-in-law, like she has like vascular dementia. And it's very sad because I know her, before she developed that. And, we can have like a normal conversation like now. But like when her memory was getting worse, it's devastating because you still wanted to keep that conversation.
Have the same level of sort of communication.
Yes. But then every few minutes, she'll repeat the same thing. Let's just say, like, oh, have I had like lunch or like what's going on? So yeah, so you feel that like it's you still wanted to talk to her or like talk to So I think it is like for both the carers and the people who have like dementia. It's really good that if we have more resources out there. So I think that's one of the questions that I came across, and I think that as a neuroscientist I'm really interested to understanding the basic fundamental like neuroscience bit of like memory and understanding what's happened in the brain. And one of like my research interests is looking into what are the different factors that influence like information seeking and memory. For example, like there's so many different factors, right? Before we can name a few. One of the factors is that, let's just say right now, again, I think that we're having a conversation, right? And you probably interviewed, like you just now mentioned already, like 37 people, right? So there are lots of like, information. And if I have to ask you, do you remember in episode 20, like which like person? Yeah. So like it's very hard, right? Like, and also what you've done a lot of interviews and maybe you remember the main message, from each. But if I have to ask you like each question,
more of a synopsis of the episode
rather than the actual, so there are so many different factors like influence how you remember things, right? And for example, let's just give an example. Like right now we're talking, and you may forget most of the conversation maybe by the end of tomorrow, and it's normal. Forgetting stuff. But maybe suddenly someone come in and it handed you like really like lovely plates of brownies and some really nice coffee. You may remember these moments better. And hence you may remember Dorothy was saying that, novelty is one of the important
connection of them two things.
Yes, and also there are different factors. So one is novelty, if something less surprising, like happened. You may remember this moment better. And you remember, that day, we were in this room and it's a really sunny, lovely day. Because usually, So this is like the novelty element. And the other element that I'm really interested in is that prior knowledge. So what is prior knowledge? It means like the prior experience and the knowledge that you learn. So let's just say maybe since we're a kid, right? We learn like times table. I've got 3 little ones. So they're going through like, learning times table. But let's just say if you learn like 2 times 2, like with the number 2, 1, like when the teacher teach you like 4, you may be able to pick it quicker. So it's that like knowledge means that it's basically like a mental framework to help you to organize things better. And in a psychology term, we call this like schema. So it's basically a mental framework to help you to organize information. So those like using the times table example is like once you form this like schema, like you adding information is quicker. So that's is another like factor. I'll give you another example, which is maybe like to more our everyday life. Are you from around here?
I'm from like not this area, bit more northwest.
Okay, northwest. Wigan, right? So let's just say you probably got a really good map of Wigan, right? And I'm not really familiar with Wigan, so maybe you told me that that's maybe a new restaurant that opened in Wigan. You probably like remember this information really instantly because you have like prior knowledge.
Yeah.
We call it schemas
Yeah.
of Wigan. However, if I am new to Wigan, I will have no idea, you know, what you're talking about, like the street, right?
Yeah.
So that means like a schema, like a prior knowledge, helps you to learn new things like quicker. And
Yeah. So you almost have like a base foundation to like learn on top of.
Exactly. So it's like a bit like scaffolding.
Yeah.
You basically form like a network and framework.
Right.
And then when you incorporate new information, it's make it easier.
Yeah.
So we're looking into all these like different factors and how does that contribute to memory and then study about the brain.
Yeah.
So
So when you was talking there about, you know, people when they ask you the question, sort of the differences between, you know, forgetting things and dementia and stuff like that, then sort of topics you've mentioned there were like schemas and frameworks. Do they come into the consideration of like knowing the difference? Because sort of were other lines drawn when you're thinking, oh, that's a telltale sign of maybe I'll set dementia, or you're just like a bit like me and you're a bit more forgetful? Is the stuff that you see as a neuroscientist and sort of a cognitive psychologist where you're like, that's when, you know, it teaches from being forgetful to like maybe slight alarm bells going off, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. And this is also like one of the quite often questions that people ask me, you know, what is how do you distinguish basically like a normal forgetting versus like you may develop sex? Yeah. So there are tests, like memory tests that could help to identify that. And usually I would suggest when people ask me this, I will first direct them to GP because they usually with GP they have like a standardized like memory questions. So that is more standardized and is across like the nation that you will use these kind of tests. So yes, so that are like tests. So I would definitely say that if you are concerned, or if you know like any family members that got concerned, I think the first direct point is to look into GP, and they have like a standard of test, and then they can direct you to like memory clinic, and then that will be finding a way to like actually diagnose is that you know it's more just normal like forgetting, or is that it's actually developed. Yeah, because and also at the different organizations like Alzheimer's Research UK and also like Age UK, they also have really good resources to help you, you know, like to see that just like as a notebook to say that is this like something you're forgetting or something. But I think like ultimately it's best like, you know, the first direct like contact point is GP. Yeah.
So you mentioned a little bit before when the questions came into my head, so I hope this makes sense when I ask it to you.
Yeah.
You mentioned about like novelty and prior learning, and often you see people like they go somewhere for the first time and they remember it, and then the longer they're away from it, they sort of have this, you know, this fabricated idea of it. Oh, it was amazing, it was this, I remember this, like it was vivid, and then they go back and they're very, you know, almost let down or underwhelmed by going back for a second time. How do our brains do that, and why did they do that, if you can answer that question? Just because you mentioned there about like, you know, the novelty and the prior knowledge. That's something I've experienced myself. I think, oh, this is amazing, then you go back and you're like, oh, actually.
Do you mean like traveling to a place?
Yeah. So I noticed when I was doing a bit of research for the podcast, you mentioned about like going to a city for the first time. Novelty of it. But then, you know, when people return and they're like, oh, I sort of bigged it up in my head and drew a better picture than
it's not what you remember. Like, I think this is fascinating, and it happens quite common too. And I think one thing I would also like to bring that out is that sometimes we think that we remember things, right? And then you thought that maybe that memory is fixed. Like maybe like once it's like maybe you store like in something in computer. So once that document is there, you stay that forever. But memory doesn't necessarily work like that. It's not like, I think this is one of the myths too. Is that it's not all the memories that like once it's there, it's forever, it's just there. So it's more what we call like brain is quite plastic in some sense that memory could change. And there are different phases of memory. So we probably heard of like when we receive information, right? That uses different senses, which this is like encoding phase. We call it this is encoding. And also if let's just say if I ask you, oh, do you remember that place just now where you talk about that you've been there again? That is like more retrieval phase. So when you retrieve some information, and sometimes it could be having like a false memory. Is that, oh, you may remember this is like the first time, but it's just actually exactly how you remember. So that is something that maybe sometimes when you retrieve information, you may add into some information.
But that's just snowball effect.
Yeah, it may not happen actually in the first time.
Yeah.
You're probably, oh, this is like really good. Like I was with, I don't know, this. I was with like some nice like family or like friends, and the place was amazing. However, when you arrived to that place, that is not what you remember.
Yeah,
so
circumstances.
So that's like with the brain that you probably heard of like false memory.
Yeah.
Like so sometimes that maybe it didn't happen, but you thought it happened, and sometimes it's that may be like when every time you retrieve it, the information, you may adjust or like change that information and to a point that you thought it's looked like that, but reality is probably that you like adding some information.
You made it a bit more grandiose than what it was.
Yes, and that's just sometimes why when you mentioned that there are like differences, like the reality, or maybe when you go back to that place, actually it's not as good as I think, but it's different. It's different.
And you mentioned about plasticity and things like that, and obviously neuroplasticity is very important for habits and things.
Yeah.
So obviously, I'd love to ask you to explain neuroplasticity because you can probably do a miles better job than what I can do. But how important is that for us, developing sort of having that plasticity in our brain to sort of continue to learn and do things?
I think it's really important, as you probably know and probably done like previous interview on that, stands with plasticity. I think what I would like to add or emphasize is that I think it's important when you learn new things, you have this mindset is that there are things could change. It's not like always when you learn something, it's always, I'm not saying 100%, it's like something it stays. Like maybe you learn like skills like playing piano, right? Like you like once you know, maybe you play 10 years, like even if you 10 years didn't play, you still know how to play it. But I think it's more like when you learn new skills, it's just like you can always, if you put time and effort, you can always do that and you develop something. So I think like with brain plasticity, what I would like to say is that it's not everything is just pure like static, it stays there. It's that when you stimulate the brain with all the different things, that you can see the changes.
It's important to keep refining the process.
So I think, especially then to it back to like the older adults with the well-being. So for people retired, and sometimes they may find that it's good to learn new skills, maybe learning a new language, because you have a complete different foreign knowledge, complete different schema. Let's just say, for example, learning French is I think is different, really different than learning Chinese or Japanese. Yeah, so learning like a new language. I think there are studies showing that people ask also one question is that does playing games, different types of games, not just pure saying that video games this is that another different topic. Games like all these games, does that help to stimulate your brain? I think that what I would like to say is we've got to be more cautious, to understanding what games you're playing. Let's just say I know that it's great people doing crossword or like Sudoku. So if you keep playing Sudoku, yes, it stimulates certain areas. However, if you're just doing the same thing again and again, does that in fact is that good in doing this, or you learn completely something new? Because that may give you a different stimulation. Maybe be more cautious when people are saying, this brain games is really important. But I think you probably got to look into it. Is what kind of skills they're training you to do. I think this is just something important.
You mentioned there about games, and obviously one of your projects does sort of heavily fix on a video game, and that's Minecraft, isn't it? Can you explain that? I mean, when I was looking into it, and I've got to ask about this because obviously Minecraft is an absolute massive thing, especially young children.
Yeah. Do you play Minecraft?
I have played Minecraft a long time ago. Played games similar to it, but yeah, I mean, it's an obsession, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
it's
because like and also recently, I mean, like Roblox, like Fortnite, so that difference, like a really big, huge
I'm a
market.
bit of a gamer, like myself, but like the level in which it is now when you see it is just tenfold what it was when
Yes, definitely. What, just out of interest, what kind of games do you like to play? It's like,
I like similar games to, you know, Minecraft and things like that. I like games that are quite relaxing and don't really have an end point. You can just sort of play them to unwind. So I don't
yes,
really want something like Fortnite, Call of Duty, or
yes,
FIFA, what's going to absolutely enrage me
yes,
if I'm losing, which I pretty much will, so I'm terrible at them. So I like games like I play things like Stardew Valley and stuff like that, and it's just almost the same thing over and over again.
That's
But like it's relaxing. You can always progress,
yes.
but there is no real end goal to stop. If that
Right.
makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because the reason I'm asking is I'm genuinely interested,
Mm.
like when people play games, what's the behavior, and also what do they want to get out from the game? Yeah. So this is something. Yeah. So this is maybe something that you can think about.
Yeah.
And also games that you like to play. So that's already asked you that question because there may be certain types of games that you like and you actually know the reason because just now when I asked you, you were saying that you wanted to unwind.
Yeah.
That's how.
Yeah.
But I think some people maybe is the opposite. They would like to chase the thrill.
Yeah.
Right. They would like
Definitely.
to right.
With
So
games like Call of Duty and things like that,
yeah.
where it's very almost like high octane, super stimulating. You're in the moment. There's no
Yeah, so because that like as a psychologist, I'm already fascinated, by different like behavior, like when they play, when people choose the game, like what kind of games, and also why do they choose it? But back to your question.
Yeah.
So back to your question, yes. So in my lab, so we're interested again is like how these different factors, like influence information seeking and also memory. So I mentioned that previously we've got like this topic still ongoing is like working with the older adults, right? Apart from promoting brain health, I've also got like an experiments working on is how does prior knowledge influence their behavior and also information seeking. So with that project is using a computer task, okay, and they have to go to a shopping mall and then they have to learn like the prior knowledge, the schema of the shopping mall. And it's a paired association task, which means like if they have to buy like a new like nice like black top, they have to go to a specific shop. And the participant need to like enter the shopping mall and from different entrances. So if you think about a big shopping mall, right, you've always got different like sides of entrances, and then you need to navigate, to displays, and you probably need to look into the external cues, right? So maybe there's a big sign to there or big clock, and then you will know, oh, that is the shop. So the participant need to learn this. And what I'm interested, to see is that how does if they have a good prior knowledge, would they be remember new things quicker?
Yeah.
And this is working with like older adults and also early onset dementia like group, which is with the Walton Center, and this is with the youth rate, and also we're recruiting. So that is one project, and you can see that with groups like older adults and also early onset dementia. And then the other project we were talking about is with Minecraft, and it's working with younger like adults, like university students, and also we did some pilot studies with kids because as you mentioned, like kids love
about it.
so we did a few like pilot studies and also published engagement events. So not just do the experiment, we also show like the kids like what scientists are like what do they do, and and we got like a Minecraft station, like they really enjoyed the game. And also after the game, like I also asked them like in a real setting, to find like the task, like to find the things. And I'll tell a bit more about the Minecraft task. So the reason we use Minecraft is because we would like to find a tool that's more easier to access like for the kids. We genuinely would like them to like the game. Minecraft is very like easy and you can program it in a way that is suitable for the experiment settings. Because previously I did quite a lot of like animal works, so this is a direct translation bit, of the Minecraft. Got like this maze, so it's like an open like area. So the game is that you need to find the correct like objects in a specific location,
Right.
like as quick as possible,
Yeah.
and also with less errors as possible.
Right.
So it's like a memory game.
Yeah.
Like yeah. So again, the participant need to like break the blocks. You say
Yeah,
like
yeah.
yes, like a different color of blocks, and then in the starting location and in the arena in the maze, they have to find it. And of course, the blocks are hiding.
Yeah.
So they need to like, dig and then break
Yeah,
it. Like,
yeah.
yeah. So this basically is a memory test.
Wow.
Like yeah. So again, like the kids really enjoyed it. They would like to play more. Like
Yeah, of course, yeah.
so,
Good opportunity for them.
yes, and now with this project, we're collaborating with computer science because like I'm really interested into like interdisciplinary. I think that's really important. And also, I've got collaborators from University of Edinburgh. So Richard Fitzpatrick, he actually built this like Minecraft like place. So this is great. And also, we've got like more international collaborators.
Yeah,
So, which is great. So I really enjoy working with different universities and also different like departments. I think this is really important.
Yeah.
So that is still ongoing. So like yeah, if you're interested, like
Yeah. We'll get you back on.
Yeah.
When you get the findings.
yeah, and then there's also one project because we got like several projects. But there's one project this is using VR. I don't know if you know like virtual reality. So this is something, and I really like this project also because again this is collaboration with computer science, which is important. And this with I've got two students working on that. So one is a dissertation students in psychology, and another one is the MR students. He did his undergraduate in computer science. So he basically created, using VR, like Unity, created like the map of the computer hub. But have you been to the computer hub?
No. I've seen it, but yeah, I'd like to go.
You would be a perfect like participant. So what the idea is that I can give you like a maybe brief like you like not to expose too much.
Yeah, give it away.
So so we've got like two groups of participants, and so one is that they have really good pro knowledge of the actual building.
Yeah.
So imagine that you know like the spots like inside out, right? So imagine we build like a startup in the spots like for you could experience, right? Like so you may have a really good pro knowledge, right? So if then in that settings, which is real, right? Like if we ask you have to find like objects in different rooms, like will you have advantage of doing that versus like people are new, and so this is ongoing. So like the students are like recruiting data, but so that would be really interesting.
It's interesting to see the use of these more advanced technologies like VR and things like that, because I imagine 20 years ago you'd have to probably build a mini version of something that people do these studies, but now you can obviously use the advantages of VR. And does that make your life easier having these obviously more advanced tools and things like that?
And I think it makes it more interesting. Also, I like the kind of more real life settings, because what we have, like I said, in a Minecraft is more like a virtual world, right? Okay, it's like a gaming world. However, in the VR settings, what we have just now, it's more like a real life setting. Is the reality is that building.
Yeah.
So you know that building. Let's just say maybe in the sports department, like you know that building, and so what we build is like mimicking. This is like the setting. So you feel like because this is more like ecological validity. So it's like it's more like a real life settings rather than you invent. This is something like
what Minecraft is. It's this sort of like conceptual thing.
Yes. So I think that is important to like do experiments. Like I'm working towards that way. Is that people will have to understand this is more like a real life settings rather than this is like a lab thing. And then also applying to the shopping mall like task is that we all have like experience in shopping. Like so maybe the shopping mall looks very different. But the idea, of shopping, you know what this is like. So I'm hoping to work towards this like there's more like a real life settings and environment.
That's cool. So good. It's so like interesting to see how the different avenues sort of create different maybe endpoints, but obviously working towards similar things. And I'd like to ask you, just from my own perspective, is like what are some of the misconceptions that you get from being like a neuroscientist and a cognitive psychologist? Yeah, I'll expand first. So I've got another question after that. But yeah, what are like the main misconceptions that you come across a lot?
Yeah, I think just now in our like discussion, we talk about one thing is that people sometimes think that once you form a memory, it stays on forever. I think that this could be a misconception. Not all the memories are like that.
Yeah.
There may be some really strong and vivid memory that may be like that, but it's not all of the memories are like that. So
No.
I think that we gotta understand that memory could be, it's changeable. Is it something that's not like once you have it, it's always like that. Yeah, so that's like something maybe with false memories, like that's something like application. I think this is maybe one thing. And I think there's a second when I teach like maybe undergraduate things like there was a misconception of like we only use 10% of our brain.
I was going to ask you this because this is something that you hear so much, and it almost goes back to that like limitless and things like that.
Yeah.
Potentially be brain. So is that like false?
Yes, like and there of course there are still like studies going on to understanding because although we haven't like studied about the brain, but there is still I think it's amazing still lots of areas that we still need to investigate. Yeah. So it's just like I think this is something that this is a myth like it's. And I don't think that is the truth, which is like we only use 10%. Like,
you just don't quite know how much we use because there's still so much.
It's like, and also lots of like individual differences. Yeah, so I think that need to take into account, and also there are still a lot of them like we don't know. So I think that this is something that it's not like yeah.
Is that motivating for you to sort of be in this field where anything could change? Like there could be like a topic that comes out in the next week and it completely blows everything and turns everything on its head, or is it almost nervy that things could change because there's so much that's obviously not found or understood? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I think to answer that, I think for me as a scientist, I think that it's important to form like you have the hypothesis. Like and then you do probably experiments and you verify, like you have proof, basically evidence. Right?
Yeah.
You like to look into data, and evidence. And I think there are so many things that is still unknown about the brain and also about the behavior. And then, human behavior is very complex, right?
Yeah.
So I think in that sense, there's so many things that still worth to investigate. So I think something. However, like there may be more experiments and more experiments when you see the evidence. I think it's important to ask yourself, is what you originally believe is still the case or not? So I think this is the fun about science is that, you wanted to see evidence to see that, what you are thinking, is that right, wrong? Is that what is the truth? Yeah.
So I'm not going to ask Linda a similar question when she comes on, and I think her answer was quite similar. She's sort of like rolling with the punches and just hoping that, finding what you want sort of is the right thing, but obviously having the evidence and the data to suggest that. It's quite a brutal industry, I imagine, because you've obviously got people counting what you're saying or agreeing with what you're saying. And how did you find that, like navigating sort of people coming in scrutinising maybe what you're doing or what your research is doing? Is that difficult, or do you just have to sort of step away and disconnect from it slightly?
I think it's as important, again, back to like look into the evidence. I think that's the fun part of the science is more like when you look into the evidence, how do you interpret that? Yeah, so this is more like the scientific things that you would like. And there are maybe two sides.
Yeah.
Right? There are maybe sides, I think like that based on this. I deduce that this is what happened, right? So I think it's like when you look into the evidence, what kind of like conclusion?
It's not always black and white, is it?
Yeah, I don't think it's like, and I think it is okay like that. Maybe you believe in this, and that may be different from what you believed 10 years ago. Yeah. And I think that is make things forward. It's not like because I believe that 10 years ago, hence I must believe this. Yeah. I don't think that is like. I don't think that is static either.
Yeah.
I think like there may be new evidence showing that actually maybe what you think previously, maybe that's not the case anymore. So I think this is a changing field, and I think that's also make it like interesting, like to explore. Just,
So like it never becomes stagnant. I imagine. Like I said, it's always ever changed and it never becomes static. It's quite dynamic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really interesting to just obviously get a glimpse into it and insight to it. A question that I wanted to ask maybe a little bit earlier on, maybe we should have started with this, but what is the difference between a cognitive psychologist and a neuroscientist? Did they go hand in hand, or how did you decide to sort of do both?
Yeah, I think to me it goes hand in hand. There may be other people like may not agree with what I'm saying. I think from more like the background that I was trained when I was in Edinburgh is from quite molecular. It's like from molecular biology, and it's also molecular neuroscience, and then to behavioral neuroscientists. Yeah. And I think that I would say it goes hand in hand. And if you think about neuroscience, it's like a subject that is very interdisciplinary. So you may have neuroscientists who is like more focused on the cellular level. So like we're talking about like really like cells like in the body, and you have like molecular neuroscientists and behavioral neuroscientists like and also maybe more cognitive neuroscientists. So all these like they like focus on different domain and also more computational like neuroscientists. So it's a really broad field. And then with psychologists again, the also like you have like different categories, like maybe social psychologists, right? And also maybe sports psychologists. So they're like different. And I think that there are lots of common areas that a cognitive like psychologist and also the neuroscientists are doing. Yeah. So I think in the department like we got like neuroscientists and also cognitive psychologists, and also like they are usually like a lot of times they overlap.
Like a Venn diagram to sort of entwine all of them.
Yeah. And I think that ultimately, like I don't really focus on what the name is. It's more like what we're doing. Like So
don't really want the title. It's just like
And I think I really like the interdisciplinary part of my job. I think it's fascinating. So I mentioned to you, like work with people from computer science. This is great, and I also collaborate with the departments in the arts. Like so, recently working with U3, we also have another project. It's called Like Yesterday, Memory and Movement. So that is another project working with U3, and what we asked the participant is that could you think of like a very fond like childhood memory? So maybe ask you like, I know it's probably hard in the spot, like just think of something like maybe childhood or object or something. So through a few workshops we work with the participants, okay? We ask them what is like your really vivid memory, okay? And then they, apart from they telling us what's going verbally, they also need to use movement to like represent that. That was great because I was working with like a dancer and also a lecturer at Natural, so James. And it was great because he's doing the movement parts, right? And I'm like trying to explain more from a psychology part. So basically, again, this is like an interdisciplinary like project, and then the participants like really enjoyed it, and then we filmed it. So and then we did the showcase last year. And it was really good, and just in the art center. Yes, it was over like about 100 people, and it was really good. And what really moves me is that, so my aim was, to promote again movement and the importance, of well-being. So when you think of a memory, usually maybe you write it or say it out, but it's like you use movement to express it. It's very different, right? And with the participants did really well. And then at the very end of the showcase, we asked the participants how did they feel about it. I was really touched. Like there are 2 points. Like one was that, they were saying that they feel really valued. That someone, I said they were the movie stars. They were like the attention. They were the people that really feel really valued.
The main character.
Exactly. So and they were talking about the memories of the childhood, and really brings back like a lot of emotion, like positive emotions. And then there were some participants saying after this like events, like the workshops and events, she started to go to this creative writing courses because it inspired her to say, oh, actually, I've got a lot of memories, I've got a lot of prior experience that I could talk about, I could write about, I could influence people. And that was something I didn't thought it would come out. And then the second point that is really moves me was that, and one of the participants was saying that they think that university sometimes it could be like an ivory tower that they're doing the research and things like that. But actually through these events, like because we have been working together, they think that no, it's not true. Like it's really people are really friendly.
It's personal.
They feel really welcome. And they think that we are trying making an effort for them to understand what we are doing. And this is something, oh wow, like this is something not what I expected. Like, this is something I didn't, when you write a proposal for the project, I didn't plan for these things. This is something, wow, this is really rewarding. Like for me, just
like an additional caveat of life.
And I'm saying, wow, this is something actually, it's quite meaningful. It's I'm hoping to have more of these projects to benefit like the community and the society in that way. So I'm really, it's just really touching to see that this is something that I never thought about it.
And it must be so motivating to continue and then search other avenues where you can impact the community on a wider basis. Again, a reason that I wanted you on was to obviously sort of show the insight that I think when people think of neuroscience or maybe think of like psychology, they just see it as very much like, especially psychology, like when you go in a room, you sit on the couch and you speak to someone. With science, you're in a lab and do that, but you've just shown some really great examples about, interpersonal it can be, it gets into the community and sort of, it's a lot more than just what the common misconceptions of people are and the impacts that has through well-being. And again, that question that I wanted to ask you was, what can people do to ensure that they're keeping the brain and the memory on the positive side? What can they avoid doing? What creates negative effects, or what can they implement to do positive effects? Not that makes sense.
Yeah. I think first thing I would say is to also apply to me personally is that make sure you prioritize your sleep. Like and the reason I said it because when you're busy, just this is more personally. Like I often sacrifice my sleep. So when like you have a really busy job, right? And also I've got also 3 kids. It's that, and I'll say, okay, what can I cut? Usually I'll say, okay, I'll sleep later. I work more and I sleep later. But actually, recently I found out it's like it's not like it's really affects like the energy that I have in the morning and also like the brain. You probably heard like a lot. It's like sleep is really important. Like first it's important, for the memory. It's also important, for all the metabolism and everything, for us to rest. So I would say that make sure you have like enough sleep, like good quality time for sleep. I think that's important. And I think the other thing is to like with brain health is that like I would say to develop like new skills and the open mindset to explore new things. I think it's really important to make sure you got stimulation. Just personally again, like I set myself like one challenge per year. That's just like something, it could be anything. Like it could be more physical or it could be anything. And I think this applies to anyone that you like, so that you have like a goal and it is something that you actually enjoy and explore. Because maybe you tried it and then you think, oh, this is not for me. Then you move on, you can try something.
It's still stimulating the brain in a different way.
Because like a few years ago, I signed myself up to half marathon.
Wow.
So and I thought, okay, I signed that up so that I must practice. But that was like, it's really good that I've done it. Like I've done the half marathon and that was a really good story. Like I can tell you later on maybe. But that was like the stimulation for me is that, oh, I've got like this is something new. I mean, I probably do like a leisure run, but never but this is a really good thing to do. Like so, and I know that I've done it now, and I'm not going to sign up for like a marathon. And then a couple of years ago, I tried the paragliding.
Wow.
And I love it. And it was so good. And then this is going to be the list that I'll stay on. Like so, I think this is like the ability. maybe have a more open mindset,
Yeah.
like they try something.
And don't just keep doing the same Sudoku pattern like you mentioned before.
Yeah.
Very stimulate as much.
Yes, they stimulate. Yeah. Yes, I think that's maybe the two things that yeah.
That's correct. So the questions that I normally ask to finish up a podcast are sort of 3 habits that you do that you would recommend to the everyday person, that can sort of connect to your feels. You obviously mentioned there about being open-minded. You can probably use that one if you wanted to, but what are the 3 sort of habits and routines that you'd recommend to people to, healthy brain, just general well-being?
Yeah, I think I will use one of what I've mentioned before is the sleep.
Yeah.
I think because recently I really suffered from my sleep pattern. So I think, and it's really important that you have good quality sleep or finding ways, to have a good quality sleep. And then the second thing is probably the best is that exercise, but find something that is feasible for you to do. And I think it's applied to all ages. Is that sometimes that maybe with your body when maybe you grow old a bit, maybe things that you could have done before but now you can't do it. So finding something suitable for you but still you motivate and that at your stage. So I think that is important, and also keep a healthy social life. I think that is I think there are some activities that you enjoy more. Maybe you do it with a group of
community environments.
Yeah, so maybe go for hill walking, maybe find people that actually like to go hill walking. I think that's also the social elements is very important. So I think that's something. Yeah, because what I've seen is that maybe working with people is that one thing is maybe once they retired sometimes they felt maybe
isolated.
Exactly, maybe lost the sense of importance. From maybe previously you really focused on work, so you feel you were
sort of losing a part of your identity.
Exactly. So, and I think it's finding friends group and a community, stay in the social wise. I think that's important. So that's maybe 3 things: sleep, exercise, and stay active with social.
The last one that I ask people, which I mean you might lose sleep again, but it's it's if there was a habit or a routine that you've previously done in the past or have never done, and you would like to introduce to your life, what would it be and why?
This time I won't use the sleep one. I think that I would like to have more, because I'm a morning person. I like my mornings, and I feel I think it's really good to have even more positive thoughts in the morning. So I listen to podcasts when podcast is called Everyday Positive. So it's really short, but it's really set my tone. It's really good. And can I also have another one? And also I think at the end of the day, have a reflection of what is maybe the best moment of the day. And I did it. I think this is something that I would like to do it to myself, because with my kids, always during dinner time, always ask them, so what's the best moment of the day? They ask it because it's more like a talking point. But I think sometimes I didn't I would say something, but I think I'm hoping that really reflect on what happened on a day. And that's really makes you happy. So for example, tonight I'm definitely I already foresee what I'm gonna say is that I've done this podcast with Jack, this is great. So this is something I think is having a good mindset.
Relationship, gratitude and reflection.
It's a really positive things that in the morning, and then at the end of the day, maybe you just to say something what you feel grateful for,
something as simple as that.
Yeah, exactly.
Love that.
So that would be.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for your time. Obviously, you're very busy, but all these projects on, you do all the lecturing and everything like that. So I'm really thankful, grateful that you took the time today. But before we go, let people know where they can find you, social media, your website, anywhere like that. And
Yeah, that's been really good. Yes, and thank you so much, for having me. So I think you previously have the slides of all the social media. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. We've got the web website, that website, and also you can find me in different
Well, I'll put all them down in the description. Yeah, thank you very much.
So,
Nice one.
thank you. It's great. I hope
How was that? Enjoy it?
enjoyed it.
Good. You did really well. No worries, fine. Please, no.